Hey friends, Carmel Holt here. As you know, times are tough for public radio and audio. And as a tiny independent feminist production company that makes SHEROES for public radio and for this podcast, we're getting hit pretty hard with financial shortfalls. Simultaneously, this is a moment where women, trans folks, non-binary, and queer folks need a safe space to be heard. And at SHEROES, we're more committed than ever before to our mission of turning up the volume of underrepresented voices in music. But to keep going, I need your help. And I have big news. SHEROES has partnered with the nonprofit AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio. You can text SHEROES to 53555 to make a tax-deductible donation through AIR or visit SHEROESradio.com. Thank you for supporting independent, femme and queer-produced audio and storytelling like the episode that you're about to enjoy. It's up to us whose voices get heard, and with your help, we'll keep turning up the volume.
I just have really chosen to believe in this feeling of like there is community out there and that's where the gold is, and shift my ideas of what success means. You know, like success to me means having a lot of peers that I'm just like, wow, you blow my mind. And I hope I can write a song as good as that one someday. And then like egging each other on to just keep searching and to keep growing.
That was Hurray for the Riff Raff, and this is SHEROES, a weekly podcast to amplify women, non-binary, and gender-expansive voices in music across genres and generations. We believe that sharing our stories is the first step to making music better for everyone. I'm Carmel Holt. This coming Friday, March 20th, Hurray for the Riff Raff will release Live Forever, a new live record on the exact 2-year anniversary of The Past Is Still Alive. That was named one of the best albums of the 2020s so far by Pitchfork and one of the best albums of 2024 by the New York Times, Atlantic, NPR Music, Rolling Stone, Billboard, Out, Mojo, Uncut, and oh yeah, by us here at SHEROES. Live Forever was captured over the course of 2 sold-out shows at the Old Town School of Folk Music in Alynda Segarra's new hometown of Chicago. Spanning 14 songs, Live Forever includes a performance of The Past Is Still Alive in its entirety and this favorite. That's Rhododendron from the forthcoming live album, Live Forever, out on Friday, March 20th from Hurray for the Riff Raff. This week, we're celebrating its arrival, as well as the announcement of an upcoming tour in June, followed by a limited run of dates with Rhiannon Giddens, Mary Chapin Carpenter, and Mavis Staples. Not to mention, we're also lighting some belated birthday candles for Alynda's 40th, which just happened on February 26th. And with the new live album not only coinciding with the 2-year anniversary of The Past Is Still Alive, but also featuring the album performed in its entirety, seemed like a great moment to revisit this 2024 conversation with Alynda, which details some of the stories that they share as memoir-style songs on The Past Is Still Alive, and how the songs and recording of the album suddenly took on a whole new meaning following the sudden passing of their father. I'm thrilled to once again present a conversation with Alynda Segarra, aka Hurray for the Riff Raff, on SHEROES.
Thanks for having me. I feel like I'm home.
Congratulations on this amazing 9th album, The Past Is Still Alive.
Yeah, I really love this record, and I feel like it resonates with people in a way that's very new for my experience of putting out records. So it's cool to see.
Why do you think that might be?
I definitely think this is the most vulnerable I've been in my writing in a really long time. Since I first started writing songs, I was doing a lot of exploring outside of myself and looking at the world and looking at issues and places and things that I thought we could work on as like human beings. And as much as I love all of that type of writing, this is a record that is really stripped me down to the bone, you know, with everything that surrounded it in my personal life. And I just think it's a lot of very tender themes of grief and growth and loss and, you know, all of these human experiences. So I think that's what it is.
I was reading a story of how the album came to be, and it talked about you being out on tour with Connor Oberst.
Yeah.
and that you and everyone else was like, maybe I don't have a career anymore.
Definitely.
And that freed you up in this certain way. And I love that this far in to feel that kind of freedom, even though it's like from a holy shit, I don't know what's going to happen place too.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for when you truly feel like this is the only thing you know how to do. Like
Yeah.
if there's one thing I've never questioned, it's that this is what I'm supposed to do with my time on the planet. I know that this is my calling and songwriting is what I'm supposed to do and it's what I love to do. But what I started to question was, am I too sensitive for this industry? And am I too sensitive for this world? And that was really scary because, like I said, I don't know how to do anything else. So there's nowhere to go but inward at that point when everything outside of myself felt so out of my control. I felt like I was making the best, most truthful art that I could. And, I had a moment where I was like, well, there's nowhere to go but deeper into the writing, deeper into the song. And I was very exposed. And I think I learned a lot from that experience. It was humbling. And it was also like, really, it's been so nourishing to get this type of love and connection from being that exposed.
So you were writing while you were out on tour, which is also somewhat new for you, I think, right?
For sure. Tour is normally, again, being a sensitive person, like just
Pisces.
Totally. Like just a Pisces in a van being like, I just got to make it through being this perceived for months at a time. And I got to try to sleep as much as I can. But while we were on tour opening up for Bright Eyes, I had a lot more free time. Being an opening band is just a really great gig in a lot of ways that you can be done at an earlier time. And also I was watching this very important songwriter every night, this incredible band, and also like a band that are friends and have been friends forever. And it's like a family. It was just the perfect supportive environment for me to be in at that time in my life. And watching the band every night, listening to that lyricism every night really inspired me. And it reminded me of where I was supposed to go.
Was there anything that ended up on the final product of The Past Is Still Alive that came from that period?
For sure. World is Dangerous. That's why I wanted Connor to sing on it, because I think the lyricism is very inspired by him. That's a song where I was like, I just want turns of phrases and wording that you weren't quite expecting. That was like the nerdiness that I went into that was really fun, because I'm just like a lyric freak. Sometimes I'm like, wait, what does the song sound like? Because I just hear the lyrics. So that was one that I felt very much was inspired by that time period.
A glass of sweet, 'cause this world is dangerous.
The World is Dangerous featuring Connor Oberst, a very waltzy song that happens almost at the very end of The Past Is Still Alive. Alynda Segarra, our guest today on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. Okay, so then you had another major turning point in your creative process.
Yeah.
A very sad one. If you'd be willing to tell us a little bit about your dad and how his passing intersected with this album and what it did for you, for your creative process.
Yeah, a month before I was scheduled to go into the studio with Brad, my father passed away very suddenly. And my dad was also a musician. He was a huge inspiration to me. I've had him on album covers. I've had him in multiple music videos. He was just a really big part of my creative life. He's the reason why I play music. So that experience was obviously life-altering. And suddenly, all these songs that I had already written kind of took on a new meaning, because I was already touching on these ideas of grief and love of people that you have to let go of, and a lot of like memoir style writing, looking back on my life. And when I lost him, suddenly the mission of the album became very different and very clear. But it was, terrifying.
So can you expand on what that mission was and then filtered through that experience, what it became?
Yeah, before the passing of my dad, it just felt a little bit more relaxed of oh, I'm looking back on my life. Pandemic times were very hard on all of us. I'm thinking about times that I have a difficult experience honoring, kind of playing around with ideas of memory. And then when my dad passed away, it became less of oh, these are writing exercises, and this is an album that just feels very loose and casual. And then suddenly it became like, this album means everything to me, and it is a grief album. It's an album that is about how grief is also love. And that grief is about many different parts of my life. It's not just about my dad, but I think that's like when the central mission and theme became very clear.
It's just so affirming that this is a universal thing and how we can transmute grief and how talking about losing loved ones and talking about trauma and how we work with it. All of this is like really important stuff.
Yeah, and it feels for me very ancient. And that's what I really rooted myself in, because the loss of my father was for sure the most unmoored, like lost I had felt in so long. All of the defense mechanisms I had built of being a hustler and being a bit individualistic when it came to me taking care of myself and a workaholic, all these things suddenly did not work anymore. I think I'm so grateful that I have this practice of songwriting, that it was like the songwriting knew that I would need it or something. I was just so grateful that I was going into the studio. I would think some people maybe would be like, I can't handle this, and that's totally fair. For me, I was like, if I didn't have this recording date, I would feel so lost in the grief. So it was like my trajectory and my path as a songwriter. I was able to just kind of like float with it and to be like, I don't know. I don't have the tools right now, and I'm not in control. And I was able to rely on the form and the craft to carry me. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the work of this record was unblocking myself. I think that's like a underrated practice. Is there's the work of practicing your craft, and there's also the work of getting out of your own way and letting it come out. And Brad is also a really great guide in that way. And I've said in other interviews that the grief made me so tired that I think I was just less combative in some ways, where he'd be like, that was it. And I'd be like, okay, as opposed to, but this part and stuff like the perfectionist mindset was tired, which was really great. I'd love to make that part of my brain tired more. Because I think it just stops so much of the gold, so much of the truth of us. Like, I don't want to hear people be perfect. And yet I hold myself to this standard.
I might also add to that, or even reframe that, thinking about moments that I've been going through loss and grief and how it kind of like tenderizes you in this certain way. Like,
For sure.
Like the tired is also a very kind of soft place. And
For sure.
it's like there's a certain part of your daily armor that you just put down because it's too heavy and it's not important anymore.
Absolutely. That's like the main thing, is that it's not important.
Yeah.
During that time, it felt like I could just see things differently. Like what was important and what wasn't worth it was so clear. And I felt that during the recording process of just, this is worth my energy, or I have a finite amount of energy and this is not worth it. and, that I would normally stress about or worry about. I saw it like mattering in the time span of a life as opposed to just like a day. I'd be like, well, I'm not going to care about that when I go. So no, not today,
Let's go to music again here. What song would come to mind as we're talking about that? Is there a song that you can guide us to that saw you really kind of put that down and just be more trusting and open and let happen what happened?
Yeah, I think Buffalo. This recording is magic to me. There's something about it that's like so relaxed. And I think in the past, I would have felt really hard on myself. Like, is this compelling enough? Just these ideas of, I hope that people like this, or am I doing enough work? And now I see the difference of just telling a story and being your soft version of yourself and how much of a difference it makes.
2 moons and a raging river, saddled up by the Pinu. 2 weeks just to catch the buffalo.
That's Buffalo by Hurray for the Riff Raff from The Past is Still Alive. I'm Carmel Holt. Talk to us a little bit about the memoir aspect of The Past is Still Alive and the story that it's telling.
Well, with Small Town Heroes, that was a really interesting time in my life because it was my first experience being signed to a label. My first record I put out on a label. I had been releasing stuff on my own through Kickstarter, and I was suddenly playing bigger shows, playing music for people that were not just my friends. And I felt an immense amount of responsibility. And I was doing interviews for the first time. It definitely made me a little bit fearful of becoming a spokesperson for like this community that I came from. I felt like I didn't know how to handle that responsibility yet. And so I was very weary of talking about it and also having the story become exploited, or I don't know, I felt very like I came from a world that was very sacred to me. This like punk DIY traveler, outsider artist world. So fast forwarding to now, I think my perspective on writing about that period of my life and where I come from is very different. It's become more of a documenting this time and these people and these places and movements that I feel like are really important and should be documented and should be remembered. And also, I just feel like I have a better grasp on my writing and my language, and I feel more empowered. I feel more like I know how to tell this story in a way that is honoring it, and it is not just giving it away and having, whatever form comes out that's like the most profitable or something. I think I was very scared of that when I first came out with Small Town Heroes. So, there's a book that was really influential to me while writing this called It Was Vulgar, It Was Beautiful by Jack Lowry. And it's a history of ACT UP and Grand Fury during the AIDS crisis and this artistic movement and how important it was. And reading it just really made me think about all these incredible artists, incredible people that we lost, and how important it is that people talk about them and talk about their work and their legacy. And that made me really think about this writing and how I want to talk about my friends that aren't here anymore. And I want to talk about Food Not Bombs and dumpstering and like the protests that we'd go to, because it should be remembered.
Yes, to all of that. What did you specifically end up mining here? Like, are there any stories in particular that we're hearing for the first time from you that, you hadn't shared even in kind of a low-key way before?
Yeah, I mean, very specifically, I name check this woman, Miss Jonathan, on Hawk Moon. That was just a very big character in my life, even though we only spent a short period of time together. I met her when I was 17 and I wasn't even playing music yet. I was still just like spare changing on the street, and got to New Orleans and met her. And we would like get drunk together and sleep in abandoned buildings together. And, she was the first trans woman I'd ever met. And I felt so seen by her and so safe with her. And at the time, that traveler world was very homophobic and very violent. I'd yet to find this like more artistic musical community within it. So meeting her, it was just like a beacon of light, and I'd been wanting to write about her. If you look in my journals, you'll see like years of me trying to put this relationship into words, and I just didn't have them yet. And then finally, I was able to do it on Hawk Moon, and it felt like the right timing.
And you never know the way
That's Hawk Moon from the new Hurray for the Riff Raff album, The Past is Still Alive. I have Alynda Segarra here on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. I'm so glad that you brought up Miss Jonathan and this song. And I mean, there's just so many layers of beauty in terms of what you're sharing here and being open about in a new way. And part of that is queerness and honoring your queer elders and heroes and sheroes. Talk to us a little bit too about that aspect of your work. And you mentioned like the crowds that you were running with in the Traveler days where there was a lot of homophobia.
Yeah.
And, I think it's so interesting because we're living in a time right now where queerness is finally starting to feel more and more normalized, even though there's plenty of homophobia out there still to fight. So it occurs to me that also this is a moment where you might be feeling more at ease in that way and safe.
Yeah, it's really complicated because it's like it's become more normalized to talk about, and yet also at the same time politicians are like making their entire careers out of being like obsessed with gender, so it's such a like strange moment to hold both of those truths. But I definitely feel like in music I've seen like such a big change, and I feel a lot more understood. Even doing press for this album has felt like I'm more understood as a complicated person with different identities, and then the experience of talking to press when I first put out Small Town Heroes is huge, So I had this idea about like really documenting what I thought was beautiful, because I feel like we're told all the time by social media and just like by algorithms like what we should be looking at, and we're told like what we like, oh, this is based off of what you like. So you're just being fed these images, and sometimes I'm like, I think you're feeding this to me because it outrages me, actually, which is so unhealthy. And I wanted to just create a little space that was like kind of like a crow, like collecting all these shiny things, being like, look at this, here's Eileen Miles, and here's Buzz Blur, and here's us painting the oil cans in Philly, and here, just trying to capture these moments and make a scrapbook. So that's where the song Colossus of Rhodes came from, because, this was written I think a day after I had heard about the shooting in Colorado of Club Q, and just feeling, this was an expression of grief, of just feeling so afraid, and also so digging my heels in deeper into saying, I'm not going to be scared off. These are my people, and this is who I am. And so I wrote this song just as a container of safety. It's like kind of like you get under a blanket fort, and it's like, here are just some beautiful things that I've collected in my lifetime, and I want to share them with you. And for about 3 minutes, you can feel safe.
hold my head like a live wire, baby, in the night.
Colossus of Rhodes from The Past is Still Alive, the 9th album by Hurray for the Riff Raff. Alynda Segarra is our guest today on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. You started this conversation by saying, like, you've always known that this is what you were meant to do.
Yeah.
This is your calling. This is your purpose. Would you say that there's any kind of shift in terms of what that means now and what the mission is of your art?
Yeah, I think the gift that grief brought me was it freed me of this burden that I'd put on myself of responsibility as an artist to kind of carry movement or something, or to inspire movement. I think that's just a really the wrong way to think about it, but it's not our fault. It's what we're fed, that artists are supposed to, be this like lone change maker and spark ideas and spark movement and like revolution.
Yeah.
And it's very isolating, and I think it's not good for us. And I think this experience of grief just really brought me back to I'm just a person who needs my friends as much as anybody else. And also, like, all I can do is witness and document and be a part, however I can, of the movement that people are making all around me. There's growth and work that's being done all the time. So it just shifted my perspective on my responsibility. And it's such a more human way to look at it. Now I'm just like, I'm a human. I need my friends. I need my community. I need to eat food and I need to drink water and get sleep. And also, like, I want to be in awe and humbled by all the work that people are doing around me.
Since we're in the SHEROES world here, I wanted to touch on gender and music and your take on it, what you've seen shift, where we might do better. What just sparked that for me was you talking about the isolation of feeling that sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And I feel like as women, as queer people, like there is a little bit of extra there still.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think there's been such a huge shift in queerness and in, gender fluidity and also just like female empowerment in music. And I also think it can get like co-opted and just manipulated really fast.
Yes.
But I also believe in the intelligence of listeners and artists who are like able to see it and be like, oh, it's happening there. It's happening. I see it. But I think that's just, that whole process is exhausting in itself, to be like, oh, I see how I'm being sold. Oh, I see how this would make somebody, my, success in one instance would make other people think like, well, there goes that slot, So I think that whole process is happening all the time, and it can be so exhausting when you're like, I just want to be seen as a human being with an experience that I'm sharing,
Yes. Yes.
But I just feel really inspired by the artists that are happening now, either like non-binary or female artists. I just think like that's where I want to put my focus, is the inspiration. And it's really helped me with feelings of insecurity and fear, because I do feel them. I feel scared of like how aging will treat me, like I know that that's a really painful process when you're in this industry. And I have my fear, but I just have really chosen to believe again in this feeling of like there is community out there, and that's where the gold is, and shift my ideas of what success means. Like success to me means having a lot of peers that I'm just like, wow, you blow my mind, and I hope I can write a song as good as that one someday, and then like egging each other on to just keep searching and to keep growing.
All right. Can we do the SHEROES magic wand?
Sure.
So with the wand, you hold the power to change anything in the music industry for women, queer folks, non-binary, basically non-males.
Okay.
If you held that wand, first wave of the wand, what would you change?
Okay. I would have free schooling in terms of like technical skills, in terms of like doing sound, producing, even like music school, just like very supportive and free education for all of these worlds. I would also have way more women and non-binary and queer people in charge of major like press outlets and also running record labels and being booking agents and being promoters. I would just love to see more of that in those very powerful and like also like they're kind of like the wizard in the Wizard of Oz. Like they're unseen, but they're such powerful positions. That's what I would do. Oh, also, I would make sure that we were all unionized and that we got fair pay and that we got health care. You know, that would be what I would do.
I love all of those wishes. May all three of those wishes come true. Alynda, it's been so awesome to have you here again. Take us out with a song, one of your favorites that we haven't played off the record.
Oh, I'm going to end it with Snake Plant, which feels like the right one. This is called Snake Plant. Also, The Past is Still Alive, and it's a memoir and a song.
Tattoo with a needle and thread, kicked in the sand.
With thanks once again to Alynda Segarra. Thank you for being here on SHEROES. You're the best.
You're the best. Thanks for having me. This is such a sacred space. So thanks for creating it.
Many thanks once again to Alynda Segarra for being with us. The 9th Hurray for the Riff Raff album is called The Past is Still Alive. And the new album, Live Forever, is out on Friday, March 20th, digitally on None Such Records and in physical form on May 8th. Catch them out on tour starting in June. For tour dates, go to hurrayfortheriffraff.com. SHEROES is produced by me, is mixed and mastered by Kelly Drake. Our original theme music is by Lucius. Our podcast is distributed by Talkhouse. SHEROES is also a nationally syndicated radio show. Please visit SHEROESradio.com to find out more. Keep in touch on Instagram at SHEROESradio, and please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our new YouTube channel, SHEROES Productions. SHEROES is 100% independent and is made possible through the support of our public radio affiliates and now listeners like you. Through a new partnership with the nonprofit AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio, we've launched our very first fundraising campaign. Text SHEROES to 53555. That's SHEROES to 53555 to make a tax-deductible donation through AIR or visit SHEROESradio.com. Thank you for supporting independent, femme, and queer-produced audio and storytelling. And until next time, remember, music is our superpower. I'm Carmel Holt. Thanks for listening. Also from SHEROES Productions, take a journey on the road to Joni, an Ambie Award-nominated 10-episode series celebrating the legacy and impact of Joni Mitchell. Distributed by Talkhouse. Subscribe now to The Road to Joni wherever you get your podcasts.